Good morning and welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. This is your TJPS morning news rundown. Mass deportation is ramping up in the United States as Donald Trump is doubling down on deporting as many immigrants as possible. Trump rescinded a Biden-era policy that would prevent ICE from entering hospitals, schools, and places of worship to carry out raids. That was seen earlier this week. In Chicago this week, it was reported that an elementary school blocked ICE agents from entering the building. According to an update from the school district, it was actually Secret Service agents looking for an 11-year-old who posted an anti-Trump video. A Chicago immigrant advocacy group is now suing the Trump administration over essentially ICE raids, saying that even though that this was corrected as Secret Service, the incident is still creating mass panic within the local community. The Texas Tribune reported on how this could affect the 11 million estimated undocumented migrants here in the United States, including the 1.6 million who live in the state of Texas, by essentially using local police, jails, and federal agents to assist in the efforts. Quote, all immigrants, even if they have legal status, can face deportation if they are accused of serious crimes like murder, domestic violence, drunk driving, sexual assault, or murder. Per a new congressional bill that was just passed and sent to Donald Trump's desk for signature, an immigrant can be deported for a crime as small as shoplifting. Earlier this week, of course, Donald Trump signed an executive order to end birthright citizenship, which is brazenly unconstitutional. Birthright citizenship is guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution under the 14th Amendment. A federal judge emphasized that in his ruling blocking Trump's executive order, he emphasized that this was very unconstitutional and just absolutely brazen, and was quite shocked that it even made it to his bench. However, the United States Justice Department under Donald Trump has said that they will, quote, vigorously defend, end quote, the order to end it. So that's thing one for today. This is thing two, healthcare. This past Wednesday was the would-be 52-year anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision decided by the Supreme Court in 1973.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government.
Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, completely orchestrated by conservatives and Trump's installation of 3 conservative justices on the court. Since that landmark reversal, Illinois abortion clinics have seen a huge spike in patients traveling to the state. More than 37,000 people have visited since 2023 compared to 8,500 in 2019. And due to the huge demand, Planned Parenthood in the state has announced that they are going to be closing 4 clinics as of this week. They said that this decision was also made given the uncertain political climate of the new administration. And they're not wrong about that. This is our reporting from yesterday on a new anti-abortion executive order that Donald Trump signed. Hey folks, this is some major news that transpired yesterday. Donald Trump reinstated basically anti-abortion pacts. Basically, per this executive order, President Donald Trump on Friday used his executive authority to restore U.S. participation in 2 international anti-abortion pacts, including one that cuts off U.S. family planning funds for foreign organizations if they provide or promote abortions. Essentially, this is a global gag rule. Basically, it's going to silence abortion advocates across the globe for helping the United States. This decision is going to impact health organizations that distribute contraception and help HIV. In this reporting by Politico, in addition to Reuters, President Trump also essentially, by issuing this executive order yesterday, it revives anti-abortion policies from his administration, including restrictions on federal funding for essentially family planning and other health programs abroad that discuss abortion as an option or provide referrals to essentially the procedure. Now, the president signed this into law. He signed this executive order hours after addressing the annual anti-abortion March for Life, essentially in a pre-recorded video that included no mention that the policies were coming. But apparently this has provoked frustration from some of his supporters who fear that the issue would not be a priority to the administration, which to them is very futile-minded thinking, because if you clearly read the Project 2025 agenda, it specifically and inherently calls for a nationwide abortion ban. So this is not surprising at all to those who actually did their research prior to the 2024 election. Lots of people are finding out that Donald Trump is not actually who he said he was on the 2024 campaign trail, and they're just finding out the hard way as he's implementing lots of these changes nationwide per many executive orders. You should also know that Instagram and Facebook, both Meta-owned platforms, have begun censoring information for abortion pills. We're going to be having more in-depth reporting on that and more regarding abortion care and access in an upcoming TJPS special report. That's thing number 2. Thing number 3 here. Remember when John McCain voted no to save Obamacare? Well, it was a remarkable moment of putting your country before your party. Just give them about 9 more years before they thought, let's try that again. So we're back at this situation. At least 24 million Americans are currently covered by the ACA. But since Trump has become president again, he did 2 things that could jeopardize it this week. So one essentially is the cost of insulin, revoking a Biden-era executive order that dropped the price of insulin to $35. Former President former President Joe Biden and former Vice President Kamala Harris did that. They got the insulin prices to drop to $35. Now that Trump is back president and he rescinded that executive order, we are back here where insulin prices have shot up, skyrocketed back to $600. According to the Post-Gazette in Pennsylvania, there is a dire need of urgency as nearly 450,000 Pennsylvanians without Obamacare could see an exponential increase in healthcare costs as Congress is weighing extending tax cuts. As of right now, 90% of Pennsylvanians are enrolled and now paying much lower thanks to President Biden enhancing premium tax credits. However, these credits essentially are set to expire at the end of this year. And if not saved by Congress, more than 2 million Pennsylvanians would be uninsured by 2026. From there, it would just be a ripple effect. This is essentially a brazen example here on my screen of what it would look like following the reversal of that decision. So that is definitely something to watch for. That's thing number 3. Here's thing number 4. A local democracy has been saved. I know many of you have been despondent, crying, and even depressed this week, but do not despair. It turns out fighting and resisting does work. Quote, in a major victory for Minnesota House Democrats Friday, the Minnesota Supreme Court ruled that 68 House members must be present for a quorum, which means the lower chamber has no official proceedings during a Democratic boycott. House Republicans have been meeting since the opening of the session on January 14th, when they elected a speaker and assigned committee chairs, even though they only had 67 members present. Minnesota House Democrats and Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon, who was the presiding officer on January 14th, declared the lack of quorum and adjourned, sued House Republicans, and asked the Supreme Court to find that Republicans could not conduct any business without 68 members present. On the first day of the session, January 14th, all 66 House Democrats boycotted the session and have stayed away from the Capitol since, to prevent Republicans from taking control of the chamber. The Supreme Court, in a 3-page order with a formal opinion to follow at a later date, agreed, quote, Republicans tried to seize power that the voters did not give them. Now that is clear, Republicans must work with Democrats for the House to operate. I am hopeful we will be able to shortly negotiate an acceptable path forward. Democratic House Leader Hortman said, quote, we're ready to roll up our sleeves and return to the negotiating table immediately. I wrote a book, it's called Resistance, a strategic guide on how to fight back, defend democracy, and avoid a Trump dictatorship. And this is rule number 5, which is very prescient given this news. So this is from the book Resistance. Quote, know what is happening. Pay attention to what's happening in your state, city, county, and not just the national level. Watch local news, do your research, and stay informed. Ensure that you are reading and researching beyond the mainstream media headlines. The worst of what's happening will either be underreported or transpiring quietly, while the administration or mainstream media seeks to focus on something rather nonsensical or less offensive. As MSNBC host Rachel Maddow once said, watch what they do, not what they say. That requires you as a citizen to be an investigator, dig deeper, read longer articles, watch documentaries while researching, and the wealth of information available to us is still legal and accessible. Watch local journalism and buy local newspapers. Fund them so that they will have the money to report on and expose local government corruption, policy issues and health crises, or local matters that have direct influence on your lives. Praise hardworking journalists. Send them kind letters. Let them know that they are appreciated and that their work matters. Don't just watch national news, but know what's happening in your own backyard. So essentially go on to say that we need to be paying attention to what's going on in local politics. This is how I end the chapter. I end the chapter by saying here, quote, "It is in seeing stories like these locally that demand a loud, vehement, and condemning chorus of civilian individuals to raise the alarm, mount pressure, expose, and stop such anti-democratic measures from passing or succeeding. Research and organize. The power of local activism is a major protector of democracy. Do not allow your state, city, or county to become an authoritarian stronghold. Know your rights and protect them." Whew. So that is thing number 5. And we're going to be talking more about that actually tonight in a democracy special. You're going to want to be here for that. So make sure that you are subscribed. This was your TJPS Morning News Rundown. Be sure to stay tuned for a special video later tonight on democracy, as well as the evening news rundown. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, and follow us on Substack, Blue Sky, and more. Of our social media channels linked here in the description for all you need to know about news, politics, and history. I'm Jeremiah Patterson. It's been nice. Take care.